Hi, I'm Jeff Johnston, host of the Living Undeterred podcast. This is a reminder that we're going on tour next summer. Yes, that's right, we're going on tour. The Living Undeterred US Tour 2022. We're leaving on May 9th next summer. We're going to every state and we're raising $1 million. That's the plan to change the narrative on mental health, substance abuse, and addiction. We need your help, though. I cannot do this alone. I know there's a lot of people out there interested in this project of ours. You can go to our website, www.livingundeterred.com. We need volunteers. We need state partnerships. We need sponsors. We need as many people as we can to get out there and help those people that need help to change the narrative on mental health, substance abuse, and addiction. Again, go to livingundeterred.com and click on the Living Undeterred icon, and all the information is there. Again, thank you very much for the support, and as always, keep living undeterred. Hello, I'm Jeff Johnston. Welcome to the Living Undeterred podcast. I'm super excited to have my guest, Eric Boyum, on today from Boise, Idaho. A number of people I've met from Boise just in the last 30 to 60 days. This will be a great conversation. Eric is the second person on the Living Undeterred podcast that I've had that is in the industry, actually with the same broker-dealer affiliation that I have. So we're going to navigate a little bit about the financial services industry, some of the issues we see on both sides of the fence, from our side of the fence and from the client lens. And for those of you that are new to the show, the Living Undeterred podcast was my idea I came up with in conjunction with the Living Undeterred project, which is to talk about living a very resilient and confident, positive life, often in the face of adversity. On October 4th, 2016, my life changed drastically. We lost our oldest son to a heroin overdose. And then on June 29th of this year, 9 weeks ago, I lost my wife. And I will refrain from saying how she died, but some mountains are just too high to climb. And grief takes a tremendous toll on people. And I've lost two people now in my life in less than 5 years. So I have found a way to become a better man, not a bitter man. And it's something I carry with me every day in my heart. And ironically, today, Eric, is International Overdose Awareness Day. I don't know if you knew that. Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the issues we have with mental health and all that. But anyway, without further ado, our guest today is the awesome Eric Boyum. Eric, great to see you. I've said before, and I've said it again, sometimes you meet people you feel like you went to elementary school with. I've only known you for I don't know if I've even known you for a month, but it's not been very long. But I feel like you and I connected on LinkedIn very quickly. And then when we peeled back the layers of all the fluff that people have, we found out you and I have a lot in common in regards to dealing with adversity and trauma and setbacks. And we're going to talk about that today. So thanks for coming to the show, man. Good seeing you.
I appreciate it. And when you say going to different schools together, I had one guy one time, he goes, "Hey, did we go to different high schools together?"
See, that's my ADD. I would say something like that and think it made sense.
But yeah, no, actually, we met on John's thing.
John Stadtmuller, yeah.
That's how we met, and we kind of interacted on that a little bit, and then we connected outside of that. I felt a connection with you right away, and it was just hearing your story really touched with me, because I went through a lot of similar things in my life as well. Mm-hmm. And it's hard. And even while I was going through it, the main thing I was always looking for was someone who had been through it before and really understood it, because we can talk about it and we can try and explain it, but if you haven't really gone through it, you don't understand the emotional burden and baggage that you can carry for a very, very, very long time.
I do want to stop you for a second and make a comment, because I think what you said is very important on both sides here. I know it's rhetorical for us when someone dies or something happens, we say, I understand what you're going through. And as a survivor, like you and I are, our first reaction is, well, that's very nice, but you don't understand what I'm going through. But we would never say that. We would never say that.
Right. Exactly.
But the same thing is true as if and I'll say this because I've had people on my show that have had sexual abuse and have been raped. But if someone was sexually abused and they told me their story, I would say, well, I understand what you're going through, even though I don't understand what they're going through. So we don't want to stop people from reaching out and saying, hey, I understand what you're going through. The reality is trauma is trauma. And adversity is adversity, and none is really one, more intense or more or better or worse than anyone else's. It's just unique to us. And so I just that thought popped in my head, and I thought I'd comment on that because I think we too far often on social media just pat each other on our back, and we send thumbs up and we say, hey, it's going to be okay. You'll get over it, and you move on. It doesn't always work that way,
Yeah. And we're a little bit flippant with it, I guess. My wife and I, in fact, we were talking about it today. I took her to work today, and we were talking, my mom died 6 years ago of cancer, and I had a great relationship with my mom, talked to her like twice a week. My mom and I, we're both the youngest of our family. So we kind of had a kinship going there. And my brother and sister, they were in college before I even got into junior high. So I was an unexpected child. But I always said the best is last. But anyway, but going through that, my wife made the comment today because her dad just passed away in February of cancer.
Okay.
And she goes, I never really understood what you were going through until now. She goes, this is hard because we just had my nephew just got married and he's not there, And I said, it's really hard because you go to these family events and you think about them and go, oh, they would say this or they would do, you just remember, you start to remember them, which is awesome, honestly, which is awesome. But you can't really identify the depth of loss or the depth of pain unless you've been through it. And you think you can, but there is a definite difference in the two of whether experiencing it or just being genuinely caring. And I don't want people to not care. I'm not saying you don't care, but there's just a different level of it. So that when you and I can talk to people who are dealing with friends and family members who are dealing with addiction, we can relate to them because we've dealt with it. And and when I was in the middle of all of that, I was just searching for someone who had gone through it. So that I would know I can get through it. Because you don't understand the not just the pain, but the deception that an addict does. I mean, this is, we always say an addict lies all the time. And it's really hard. And people don't understand that. Well, they're so nice and they are to you, but behind closed doors, it's chaos.
One of the things that I'm trying to do more of, especially with the projects I'm working on, the people I'm talking to, is the narrative behind, the stigma behind a lot of these conversations. And even just the word addict, you and I talk about it and we say the word, but then I'm in the back of my head thinking, oh, wait a minute, Jeff, you're trying to change the narrative. Then why do you keep saying the word addict? And why do you say alcoholic? And why do you say sober? And why do you say ADD? I go back to my son. Our son was given Adderall for ADD, and ADD was a label. It meant it was supposedly, obviously it's bad, or why would a doctor give you a pill? And it's not bad. I have ADD and you probably do too. And it's a superpower in a way. But, so one of the things I'm trying to do is, and it's work, and I have to start with myself, is some of these words that we like. Addict is a great one. I start off like my classes. My son and I would give some presentations at the local high school here. And I would ask the kids in the class, give me some words that describe addict or addiction. And, you can imagine these freshmen,
Yeah.
it's alcohol, drugs, it's, all these things. And I said, how about healthy eating? How about telling the truth? How about working out? How about
Yeah.
positivity? Aren't those
Right.
addictions? Aren't those addictions too?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm trying to get them to think that the word addict isn't a bad word.
Right.
It's the stigma we put behind words like that. Even,
Right.
again, I can't think off the top of my head other words, but there's plenty of words out there that you could find the counter to them. So
Right.
addictions are great. It's just
Right.
we want the good ones, right?
Right. 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 Yeah. No. Yeah. And I mean, it's all habits.
Right.
It's whether it's good habits, bad habits. And some of them are more compulsory than others. And
Right.
and you're right. And that's how you get through it, though, is you just start changing the little things, and the little things, they all add up.
I'm so happy you
Um,
said habits, Eric. I'm so happy you said habits, because there's a part in my book that I found, I was doing my research, the difference between negative habits and negative emotions.
mhm,
And the problem is that we tell, I say we as in society, we talk about negative emotions, anger, greed, jealousy, hatred, sadness, these things that evoke a lot of, let's say, negative feelings. And we
right.
tell our children, and we say this, and especially LinkedIn's really good at this, where they're telling us to basically not have these things, be
Mhm,
positive, always do this, always do
right,
that.
right, right,
It's like, no, 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 no. Negative emotions are perfectly fine. It's what makes us human. We just want to keep
right,
their lifespan. We want to keep the lifespan short. It's like you said, Eric, the negative habits we have to avoid: smoking, drinking, lying,
right,
vaping, stealing, all those things that are
right.
negative habits. So
Yeah, no,
I'm happy you said that word.
yeah, because I'm also writing a book, and it's interesting the direction that it's taking for me. Um, and I was going through the book is the book of Proverbs, the book of fools and butts, because there's 72 verses that have the word fool in it. And I
Hmm.
started reading Proverbs because I didn't want to be the fool,
Right.
but I found that out of the 72 verses that were there, I was 70 of them.
Hmm.
So, and anyway, it was kind of interesting going through that. Of those 72 verses, 28 of them deal with how we speak.
Hmm.
And I'm going, maybe there's a message there. And I started doing more research. And basically, what it comes down to is we all get the same data input.
Hmm.
Okay. So we're all of our surroundings. We have our five senses give us input. We've got a
Hmm.
positive voice, we have a negative voice that all are giving us input all the time. And if we don't do something with that information, now some of it is just, you know, like behind me. Look, there's a coffee pot behind me. We delete that, get rid of it,
Hmm.
you know. And if we don't get rid of it, if we don't consciously delete some of that, like especially the negative stuff, we have to consciously delete that stuff out of our mind.
Hmm.
If we don't, it just gets stored into a file, and it's just sitting there in the back of our brain. And this file keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger with more stuff and information in it, that when the bad voice, the negative voice says something, pops in, that file comes to the front and all of that gets exposed. And
Hmm.
you start to get overwhelmed with that. And then then you tie an emotion to it, which gets, call it the heart, your inner self, that emotion.
Right.
Then now it's emotional, and now it starts to become a part of you. And out of that are the words that you speak. And how you speak is the direction in which you're going to go. And that can be either on the positive side or negative side. Now, there were a lot of years, and I'm still working on it.
Oh yeah,
I'm a work in progress.
I am
But
too.
I found myself listening more to that negative voice than I was to the positive voice. And to reprogram and delete files, of consciously deleting files of, for me, my past would come up of, you really treated that person poorly in the eighth grade. Yeah, but that was the eighth grade, and that's not me now. Delete.
Right.
You
Right.
know, I could dwell on that. I mean, my wife and I, we've talked about it before. I said, if I ever go back home and bump into my girlfriend that before her, I owe her a deep apology. I am
Yeah.
so sorry for the way I treated you. I was horrible. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I was young, dumb, didn't know better.
Right.
And, it, but that pops into my head and I go, okay, wait, but that's not me now. Delete. And I think people focus on that and they go, well, but and they start to think about it, and you can't think about it. It's not you now, or it's not who you want to be. So stop dwelling on it.
There's a great book I read, and I can't remember the author. I want to say Andy Norman, but I can't remember. It's called Mental Immunity.
Mm-hmm.
And it talks about building up. It talks about mind parasites. These are things that come into our mind, like a virus, like a computer virus, like COVID. We take a vaccination to fight COVID. We buy malware protection on our computers to fight viruses, but we don't do anything for our minds. We don't do anything to protect our minds. So what you've kind of talked about in a way, and I'm going to ask you a follow-up question here, is, I have certain ways that I build up immunity systems in my mind to protect myself from viruses.
Right.
And I mean, metaphoric viruses in a way. But what are some things that you do in your day-to-day, week-to-week, year-to-year processes to protect yourself from, I'll call them the mind viruses?
The mind virus. I love that term. That's really good, because that really is what it is.
Right.
I mean, it's just this little, and I like the parasite, because a parasite gets in, dwells, burrows, and grows, and that's exactly what can happen with these thoughts. So for me, like, one of the things I do is I will say out loud, no, that's not me. That's not who I am. And it's not where I'm going.
Out loud.
Out loud.
So if you say that at Target, and you're in the milk section, you say no, do people turn around and look at you?
Okay. So when I'm in public, I translate that, and I will say out loud, I will go 4, 3, 2, 1, done. And it's the same thing to me.
Yeah.
And but I mean, when I'm in the park and I'm jogging, sometimes that pops in. I will say it out loud. I don't care. Because for me, the saying it, hearing it, thinking it all at the same time cements it.
You know what, Eric, what it really is your hyper awareness of these things coming. And for me, meditation's been my my lens, because I can see the birth of negative emotions and negative thoughts. I mean, I can literally see them coming down the road.
Right.
And I get out of the way. And it's literally like watching this demon car from hell flying down the highway. And you're like, I don't want to be on this thing. I'm going to get out of the way and hide behind the bushes. And I'm just going to watch it go by.
Right.
I'm not going to judge it. I'm not going to wave at it. I'm just going to watch. And I've kind of got my mind at when I'm getting angry on something. Or today was a good example. Today's opioid or overdose awareness day. So I made a post on social media. Well, I pulled up a picture of Seth, and it was like 5th grade. And man, I tell you, I could start to see that demon car from hell coming down the highway.
Yep.
And I hid off in the bushes, and I said, okay, leave,
Right.
I mean, I didn't even say that. I just watched it. And that picture of my son, Seth, is still there, but the negative, the sadness, the sorrow, the pain, the suffering, it just amazingly just went on by.
Right. Yep.
So I think that is something that you've hit on when you talked about your 4, 3, 2, 1. I think that's beautiful. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I mean, and I'm a work in progress. I mean, because I caught myself yesterday of not keep giving into my emotions.
You're human, dude. You're human.
Give into my good, instead of giving into my good habits, I bent to my emotions, and I let my emotions, and emotions. Running on emotions is good sometimes, but most times it's what gets us in trouble. And that's when we have to say, I'm sorry. And I've always taught my kids, sorry is not good enough. You have to ask for forgiveness, because then the power's in the other person's hands, no longer in yours. And you need to ask for forgiveness. And, and that's still hard to do. I mean, but I had to reach out this morning, seek forgiveness from somebody of saying, you know what? You caught me at a bad time. I lashed out. I shouldn't have. Sorry, forgive me. But you're right. But you consciously were aware of that demon bus just coming down
Yeah.
to you, you know. I
Yeah.
have this, you know, I got the same thing. I deal with the same thing. But I also know, like you said, I start my day out the same way of going, all right, ground myself in where I'm going, what I'm doing. You know, we mentioned before, you know, you do meditation, I do prayer. I mean,
Yeah.
as I always say, I'm a recovering Nazarene pastor. So,
Yeah.
you know, the the process is the same, just what we do is different, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people miss is, and I'm an avid backpacker, mountain climber. And the reason why is it's more spiritual for me to be out there in the wilderness
Right.
than anything
Right.
else. And a lot of people that I know that are backpackers like myself say the same thing. Well, I think what gets us into that spiritual place is the silence.
It's so funny,
It's just
interesting
silence.
you say that, because for me,
Yep.
scuba diving is and that's a
Mhm.
picture over here is a picture that my son and I got in, I'll turn a little bit, in Bonaire.
Mhm.
It's a place called Thousand Steps, where there's 1,000 steps that go down to the ocean. And I bought this from an artist who actually painted it from the view of the ocean looking back at the shore.
Got
And
it.
so my son and I basically were on that spot. And the reason why I think scuba diving for me works, and some people jog, some people lift weights,
Mhm.
you know, you do hiking. And the interesting thing with scuba diving is you can be with other humans,
Right.
but you can't communicate. You
Exactly.
can't talk underwater.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I can be sitting right next to you and I can see something beautiful, but I got to keep my mouth shut. I
Right.
can't say, "Oh, look at this, Eric," and then we start talking about the football game this weekend or something, you
Right.
know? The beauty
Right.
of scuba diving is it's like forced meditation with other humans.
And you're forced to take it in.
Yeah.
Just take it in.
And it's really
Um,
breathing. It's really breathing,
yeah.
because that's all scuba diving is
Right.
focusing on your breathing. I mean,
Right. 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 Yeah. I'm a master diver.
are
So
you really? Good
I
for you,
relate
man.
with you on that one. Yeah.
Good for you.
Um,
We're going to
yeah.
Rotan. My son and I are going to Rotan at the end of this month. So
Awesome. Yeah. In fact, I made it a requirement for my wife to get certified before we got married
good for you.
because I was diving like 5 times a week. And then after we got married, we went twice. So go
And
figure.
my wife was certified too. Prudence was an awesome diver. That's one of the things that we enjoyed doing together on our vacations, was to go diving. So diving's always got a special place for me, as therapeutic for me.
Mhm. Well, and it was, I mean, and that's what I loved about it the most is, like you said, all you can hear and all you really focus on is your breathing.
Right.
And I love that. I mean, looking back at it and what you're saying now, I think that's what I liked about it the most too,
Right. Yeah.
was that, you know, and I didn't realize it now until, I mean, actually you said it. Yeah, that's what I liked. I mean, I used to sit in the bottom of a pool with my tank on and just look up
I
and
know. Isn't that awesome?
and I mean, those were some of my best happy spots,
Yeah.
you know, and I loved it. And, you know, yeah. But we have to, if you don't, I'm just going to tell people, if you don't have that thing, get that thing.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
You got to get that thing. Nothing will start to change. Nothing will start to get better until you get that thing. And, because the rest of the world doesn't get better until you make yourself better.
100%. 100%.
And because,
Yep.
you know, karma, whatever, and we talked about a little bit about it earlier about how, you know, you get what you speak,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and if you don't work on your internal you and work on you, you're going to keep spewing out the same garbage and you're going to keep getting garbage back. But if you don't work on yourself, then you're not going to get what you want, and you're not going to get that happiness. You're not going to get that peace. You're not going to get it. It'll totally elude you because you're not ready to receive it.
I like to say, when you find your why, you'll find your way.
Yes.
And again, someone who's religious can take
Mhm.
that as a spiritual type saying.
Right.
I on the other hand, I'm agnostic. So
Right.
the beauty for me is that it's really open to any interpretation from my perspective.
Right.
And the word spiritual, I'm okay with that word for me. But it's more an internal spirituality, not a
Mhm.
celestial.
Right.
It's not something otherworldly.
Mhm.
For me, my motivation comes from within. And that the beauty of this, Eric, is, you know, whatever you believe in isn't as important as how you behave.
Correct.
And behavior trumps belief every time for
Correct.
me.
Correct.
I meet atheists, I meet Catholics, I meet agnostics, and they're all doing heroic things.
Right.
So, but I also meet atheists, agnostics, and and religious people, say Catholics or Christians, that are jerks.
Right.
So,
Right.
so it's
Right.
like,
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't really, I used to, I'm 55. I don't really care what people believe.
Correct.
I care how you behave, how you treat
Right.
other people. What's your why? What's your passion?
Right.
Do you have empathy? Do you have sympathy? Are
Right.
you volunteering? Are you charitable? You can believe in Gozar the Barbarian. I don't really care.
Right. Right.
It doesn't.
Right. 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 Yeah.
We get so hung up. We get so hung up on that. You got to believe
Right.
what I believe. You got to
Right.
believe what
Right.
I believe.
Right.
Bull
Right.
crap.
And I've had people say, well, if I knew people in church thought like you did, I'd actually go. And I'm like, well, yeah, you love it. I mean, it's like, well, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I get
Yeah.
that.
Right.
Because I mean, that's why I'm a recovering pastor, because yeah. And, people, there's a lot of people are just in your face. And like you said, you have to believe what I believe or else.
Right.
And I'm like, no, you are free to believe whatever you want to believe. I'm only responsible for me and what I do. You can, and I'm with you. You can say that you are one way, but if you act something, your actions will speak twice as loud as your words.
I can't remember what Albert Einstein said, but he said something to the effect about if you only believe for reward or to avoid punishment, then you're a sorry lot indeed, or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
He said some quote like that. If your only reason you're believing is to go somewhere where there's, a magical place, or you're just afraid to go somewhere else,
right,
then that's not really belief. That's not a sincere belief, I guess. That's more of a, you're motivated by avoidance or by a reward. And he just said, he said, then we're a sorry lot. If that's the case, then it's unfortunate that people can't just believe in something because it's the right damn thing to do.
Right. Right. And that's my wife and I, we talk about it, growing up, it was the fear of God, which made us go to church, because if you didn't screw up, you're going to be smited. Right. And it was just totally, and then,
heck, they do that. They do that on Scooby-Doo, man. I mean, that's the whole premise of Scooby-Doo. Don't go to the farm. There's this ghost there or something, and the guy's got like gold in the farm. It's like the whole premise of trying to scare people to change behavior. And investments do that too. The investment business does that too. The coming crash, you need to buy cryptocurrency. Blah 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 blah. It's like we the change. And I talked to Daniel Crosby about this in my book. To change behavior, we either inspire people or we scare them. Right. And I don't think that needs to be that way. Why can't we just change behavior by showing people the right way to do things?
Right. As I say, for me, I came up with this a couple of years ago for me, I finally have said, I'm going to quit preaching sermons, and I want to be a living sermon.
Good for you, brother. That's awesome, man. I love it.
And I mean, my clients come up and go, "Are you religious? We figured you are." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, and I'm like, well, it's in my bio. I was a pastor, and they're like, "Oh, you were?" And but for me, I take that as a compliment, because I'm not an in-your-face kind of a guy with that.
Right.
And it's just, and I'm like, because like with you, I'm sharing my beliefs, but I'm not telling you, well, in Ecclesiastes, this is what it says, and you better darn well do it. You
want to change behavior, walk the walk.
Amen. Preach it. Yeah, that's it.
I tell parents this too. You don't want your kids to drink, you quit drinking.
Right.
You don't want your kids to smoke, you quit smoking. You don't want your kids to lie, don't lie to them.
Correct.
And this weekend, it's college football is going to be playing. The Hawks play. It's Indiana. We play. It's a big game. Tailgaters, garages around here are going to be full. All these parents are going to be drinking and drunk, and all these kids are going to be running around. The next generation of alcoholics and addicts.
Right.
You want to stop? I'm not preaching. I'm telling you this. You want to get your kids to respect you and to change behavior before you have to change behavior. Well, then you quit drinking.
Exactly.
Simple as
Because
that. Simple as that.
They are watching you
Oh, hell
way
yeah.
more than they are listening to you.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because it's funny, this weekend, my wife said the same. She goes, seriously, how did you turn out so well with the family that you grew up with?
That's good. Yeah.
It's like, well, it was effort, and I
Right.
said, but I also married you. You were the right partner
Right.
that I wanted to change for.
Right.
I said, if, I've told her this many, many times, and I honestly believe this, if I had not met my wife, I would probably be in jail for murder because I was filled with that much anger, that much
Yeah.
rage. And I was literally at that point where I could have killed somebody and not blinked an eye. I mean, I was that angry
Yeah.
and that bitter. And growing up, I mean, I hate to disparage him because he's still
Yeah, I
alive,
understand.
but,
I understand.
but growing up, let's just say, my father figure was not necessarily the best father figure. Okay.
Yeah.
And and my dad and his cousin grew up as brothers. They grew up in the family business together, and they're two opposites,
Hmm.
And one is extremely successful and one blames everybody else.
Sure. Yeah.
And my dad was the blame everybody else, and that was what I grew up with. And that's all I knew. I didn't know any better. And so you are your environment. And but I'm going to just tell people that's an excuse. You're on your own. You're an adult now. Make your own choices and change your habits. If you didn't, and what I found myself doing is doing all the things that I said I would never do because I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself doing those things. And that was really tough for me. And and that kind of change was hard. And losing that bitterness was the most freeing thing I have ever done.
Something that's helped me, Eric, in line with what you just said about anger and bitterness is in my meditation practice, I do a guided app. So I use the Waking Up app with Sam Harris. Big Sam Harris fan, like his books, everything. But his app is really, really his meditation part of his app is really good. And every so often he practices through his guided meditation something called meta meditation. And what it simply is here's the exercise. Your eyes are closed, you're breathing, and he'll say, I want you to think for a moment of somebody that you necessarily don't care for.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody you don't have great affection for. And he'll say, I want you to think about what they're doing right now at this moment. I want you to say, may you be happy. I want you to wish them a good day. Now, this is somebody that you don't like.
Right.
That could have spurned you. It could have been
Right.
an ex. It could have been a business partner that sued you. It could have been a neighbor that keeps letting his dog crap in your yard. It could be anything.
Right.
And you're sitting there closing your eyes, forcing yourself. Well, no, it's not forcing yourself. You are genuinely wishing somebody happiness. Right. And and that practice, we don't do it a lot. He does it maybe once out of every 20 meditation sessions. Mm-hmm. And it's maybe only about 10 minutes. But I tell you what, during the course of the day, when you're in a situation and you are upset with somebody or somebody makes a post on social media, mm-hmm. I have an internal 24-hour rule anyway, where I never comment on anything that makes me mad for 24 hours. And 99% of the time I end up never commenting. But, right. But I think this meta kindness, this meta meditation thing, as we go through our day and somebody cuts you off, or, they could have just lost their dad. They could have they could have had a son overdosed by heroin. They could be, they could be under the influence of methamphetamines. You don't know anything about that person.
Right.
And the fact they cut you off, that's all that is. They just cut you off.
Right.
And I had to stop you because you talked about this thing that got me on this meta kindness, but I don't know. I would throw that out there as a practice that I work on. Is there anything that in addition to that, maybe you try to work on with anger management. You mentioned your wife's helped you a lot, but she can't be with you 24/7. Your mind is with you 24/7.
Right. Yeah. And there were a couple of things that really kind of helped me out is, I heard this song once that, God loves, anyway, I went through this whole thing. The chorus is God loves Muslims, God loves Jews, God loves gay people, God loves you. You know, all these groups that the church says bad.
Right.
If God is love, God loves them all. Well, if he loves them, then I have to love them.
Yeah.
And, and that was hard. I mean, that was a hard thing to do. And like when you said, when somebody does something bad, I used to get really angry because I had that anger.
Me too.
And then now I stop and think, what's going on in their life? Something bad has happened to make they have a hurt.
You feel sorry for them almost.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
I do. I
do too.
Because I'm like, they somewhere in their history, someone hurt them so bad that they are this angry that, and because that was me.
Or they have a mental illness.
Yeah.
Or they're just battling anxiety, depression, or they have something inside of them that really isn't controlled by them.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean,
it creates a lot of empathy for your day when you go around and see people that are being jerks and stuff. You just tend to almost feel sorry for them. It's a very humbling, healthy way to look at life when you go through daily life.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And for me, and like you, that's really, for me, it's changed of how I look at people. And, if they cut me off, all right, do they have to, is there an emergency? Do they have to go? You start thinking about it, and then all of a sudden I get, at first I get a little ruffled, then I'm like, really?
Right.
In the grand scheme of things,
right.
Is it really a big deal? He's in front of me and not behind me. I mean,
he's going to get there 5 seconds before you do.
Right. We're all going to stop at the next red light.
Yeah,
together.
exactly. So
exactly. Is it that big of a deal? And I actually have to tell and again, I do a lot of verbalization with myself.
Yeah,
because I got to tell myself that, because I have to hear it from myself that really, and I actually say, I'm like, really? Is that a big deal?
Now, being in this business with rejection, building up a practice. I mean, did you have this ability to do this forever? Or
no.
let me take this back. I mean, like for the last 5 years or so, or is this something like, for me, most of this has been cultured recently, through what happened to me. Yeah.
Same. It's last 2-3 years for me.
I mean, I was, boy, I mean, I think in hindsight now, I think having all these anger, jealousy, imposter syndrome, all these things actually helped me build up my financial services practice, because I'm highly competitive.
Right.
I don't like to lose.
Right.
And now I'm in a fight with heroin. I'm in a fight with death. I'm in a fight with these things that I obviously am not going to win.
Right.
So the only thing I can control is this box up here on my shoulders,
Right.
That's the only thing I can really control.
Well, and that's what I've kind of found in this industry is, most financial advisors crave acceptance and have a fear of rejection.
Oh, no question.
But yet we're in the industry that has the most rejection.
Right.
I mean, how sadist is that?
Right.
I mean, we're sadists. We hate rejection, but yet we get rejection all the time.
And think of the successful women financial advisors, how much rock stars they are, because not only all that, but then they're in an industry that's probably 97% male dominated.
Right.
Or 95, whatever the numbers are. But think of that. Or if you're homosexual and you're in this business. I mean, you've got all these biases against you. So I think what's been really, I don't know a word. I don't want to say fun, but I guess what's been really challenging for me is this continuous learning process. And I think, Eric, and knowing you a short amount of time, one of the ways that we work our way through life, we navigate through life. I tell my boys that life is like a big game of Frogger. I don't know if you remember the game Frogger, where the frog just jumps and all these things go flying by. That's what every day is like. And it's a matter of a balance of being very grateful when good things happen, being happy, genuinely happy when somebody does really well.
Right.
When another financial advisor posts something, you're like, instead of saying, God, that sucks. This guy's better than me. You know,
Right.
you can say, you know, I'm real happy Eric made that video. That's awesome.
Right.
You know,
Right.
now I got to step up my game. You know, now I got to get
Right.
better.
Right.
Instead of being jealous and mad and angry. So there's a lot to learn in death. There's a lot to learn in abuse. There's a lot to learn
Yep.
in addiction. There's a lot to learn in mental health.
Right.
You know, continuously learning. That's kind of that's the journey I'm on.
I mean, I love the Marine motto: assess and adapt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it's not one time. They don't assess a situation once. It's continuous. And it's the same way in life. We have to continually assess and adapt. And when you're talking about the genuine, because I used to get, be jealous of other people and go, well, come up with excuses and,
Me too.
self-blame, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I actually have very, very few friends. Very few friends. And that's because I'm very guarded.
Yeah.
I have a lot of acquaintances, but I have very few friends. And my best friend that I do have, I consider him a brother, and we're very close. And fortunately, his wife and my wife are also best friends. I said, that's a unicorn relationship. That hardly ever happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I remember when he got his first success and he was able to go buy the car that he's always wanted. And I was genuinely happy for him. And I was one of the handful of people that was genuinely happy. And he mentioned that. I'm like, and that was probably 20 years ago. And, but he's very successful. And people are constantly asking him for things. He gets bombarded to be asked for things. And I said, I'll never ask. I said, I'm in a relationship because I like you, not because I want something from you.
Right.
And I think we all know that we know those people that want something from us. And like in our industry, we have a book of business of people who have money.
Right.
Every nonprofit wants me to be on their board.
Yeah.
And every nonprofit that I'm on their board, the number one thing they ask me is, can you ask your clients for donations?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, ethically, no, I cannot,
Right.
And then I'm short, in a short time, I'm off that board.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, if you're not here for what
that's fine.
If you're not here for what I can give and what I can offer, and you only want me to get you money, I'm not your guy. Sorry, but that also spills into relationships. I think too many people, because I see it in my own kids, they associate with people that they really shouldn't be associating with because it's what's familiar and it's what they know. They know it's not what's good for them, but the thought of something else is more scary than dealing with the stuff that they deal with. Because I was the same way.
You can take that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's the abusive spouse syndrome. Yes, it's horrible, but at least it's what I know.
Yeah.
And the thought of the unknown is more scary than dealing with the abuse. And I think a lot of people do that in relationships, that you are what you hang around, and as I say, try and unpickle a pickle, pickle, a cucumber becomes a pickle because of what it's surrounded with. And it becomes a part of what it's surrounded with. And it's the same with us. We become what we are surrounded with. And it's hard to think I have to change the people I associate with because you like them, but they're not necessarily good for you. Doesn't mean you can't still like them. I don't know if that kind of makes sense. I'm kind of it's just
I'm thinking about a word that comes to mind that I write about in my book, and it's confirmation bias. You know what that is? It's obviously, I'm a let's just say hypothetically, I'm a staunch, Republican conservative, and when Rush was alive, I'm going to listen to Rush all day on the radio. I'm going to come home and watch Hannity and then watch Bill O'Reilly. And then I wonder why when people have another viewpoint, why I can't listen to them. I wonder why. I wonder why I go to birthday parties, end up arguing with every dad there.
Right.
I'm just giving an example. I'm not that human, but it's like, but then we wonder why we're unhappy and miserable. And one time I was talking to someone about the fact I never watch TV. I haven't watched any news in anything in literally years. If something's that important, someone will text me, hey, turn on the TV.
Right.
But I remember talking to someone like, well, I want to be informed. I want to be informed. And I said, yeah, but you're angry all the time. I said,
Right.
do you want to be smarter and be upset, or be uninformed and be happy?
Right.
I'll take dumb, uninformed, unhappy every freaking day of my life. I don't need to know who's running in elections. I don't need to know what they're running for.
Right.
I'll get a synopsis 2 days before I go vote. I'll get a synopsis on some neutral website on everybody's opinion. I don't need to watch debates. It's just like, I know the outcome is going to infuriate me. I know I'm going to walk out of it a less intelligent human than I was before I went in.
Right.
But we as a society keep going down these rabbit holes.
Right. And there was a documentary, I think, on Netflix that talked about the people who actually invented social media. Don't let their kids be on social media because it's addictive, and and how. But no, I did the same thing. Is right after the election, I got so sick of social media that I just turned it all off, and I didn't get back on until like March. I mean,
I'll take uninformed all day.
Best thing I ever did. I was, I was like, I didn't need to know the stuff. Didn't care.
I don't care. You show me how you behave on a given day. You found a nonprofit, you read a book, you go out and speak to people, you raise money, you go talk to kids, you quit drinking, you do all these things. You got my attention, dude. You got my attention.
Yeah. And that's real. I mean, but we get so engulfed. It's so easy to get trapped in that social media world.
It is.
It really is. And for me, it's a catch-22 because I do most of my marketing is on social media.
Yeah.
And I catch myself going down that rabbit hole. I post a video and I'm like, ooh, how many likes did I get? How many views did I get? What are the comments? Constantly checking that because, again, goes back to, I need that affirmation and I need that acceptance. So it feeds into that. And I have to just catch myself and say, all right, so I know in order for me to control that, I will post something at a certain time.
Yeah.
And I will check it only twice throughout the day. And I know when I'm going to check it. And those are the only times I check it. And then I just got to let it go.
I'm so happy. I'm happy you brought this up, Eric, because I follow people as you do on social media. And I get a kick out of people that express this attitude where they don't really care what people think, but then they comment on how many hundreds of thousands of people like their video. And I'm like, okay, what am I missing here? You triumphantly tell everybody that you're independent and you're fierce and screw everybody. And then you're quoting how many people you have that subscribe to your, and I'm like, okay, to me, that just seems like a disconnect. First of all, I shouldn't say never. I rarely ever, I can't say that, oxymoron. I rarely look at the number of eyeballs that are on my project. So for example, my Living Undeterred project, I started in January. There's a little thing down there, icon that shows all the people that look and stuff and all the likes. I don't read comments. I very rarely look at how many people look at. Some of my best blogs I've ever written had the lowest amount of eyeballs read. And my blogs that I did in the last moment to hit my deadline for Molly had my most reads. I don't understand it. It doesn't matter to me. I wrote a book coming up on 1 year ago. This is my book. Anyone interested? This one's for you, An Inspirational Journey Through Addiction, Death, and Meaning. And that's my son, our son Seth, who died of heroin. I never have looked at how many copies I've sold. Never one time. Never one time. And I had a speaking session a couple nights ago at a, it's called, the acronym's CRUSH. It's for people that have lost people to heroin. And I took a bunch of books with me. And Molly, who's in charge of my whole program, you met Molly today. She's awesome. She's always like, well, Jeff, you wrote this book. The money's going into your nonprofit. Make sure you don't give away a lot of free books. She's thinking, as a business person, I get that. I can't. I put my own money into this project. I've never made a penny. And any money I make on the book goes into my nonprofit. Well, anyway, so the other night I have these books sitting there, and what does Jeff Johnston do? People coming up, these addicts, these alcoholics, these people struggling. They don't have a lot of money. I start giving away free books,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I took 40 books with me. I walked back with none. I didn't bring any home. And I think I had $40 in my pocket. But you know what? I didn't write the book to make money. I wrote the book to be read.
Correct.
That's why I wrote the book.
Well, and that's like the content I create. I hired some consultants, and you know who they are, and I love them.
Absolutely, I do too. They're awesome.
They're awesome guys. And I joke about it sometimes because I go, all right, this video is going to go viral because it's so awesome. And it has 100 views,
Right.
And then I take a picture of my wife's coffee cup one morning and say, if this is what your coffee looks like, you don't like coffee, you like coffee creamer. 10,000 views.
Yeah, exactly. It's insane. It's insane.
But what they've taught me is don't get hung up on the interactions, because some of it's not even real anyway.
Yeah.
And so what I focus on in my content is just creating good content. And sometimes that means not putting out the content. I mean, there's probably a dozen videos that I never ever posted because I got done and I looked at them and went, that's just not right. Or, that's not good enough. It's not, it's not saying what I want it to say. That I would rather not post something than just
water it down. I agree.
Than posting something a crap that no one's, because for me, it's like everything in life. It's like your actions, you can do everything right 9 out of 10 times. But that 10th time, if it's somebody's first time interacting with you, you're a jerk.
But how about the greatest sales presentation, the greatest financial plan you ever put together? You spent 2 weeks putting together the greatest visual presentation. It made the most sense.
Right.
And the guy said, "Nah, I'll think about it." And then you go in, you're late, you're scrambling, you don't even have any paperwork. You're throwing stuff together on a yellow pad of paper, and you make a $2 million sale.
Right.
And you're like, how in the hell? How did that happen?
Huh?
I know.
I know.
And that's kind of how social media works. It's like you just got to stick. You got to keep doing what you believe in. When you find your why, you'll find your way.
Right.
And I can't tell people enough about that. If I was a coach, and I'm not a life coach, I'm not a motivational speaker, but if I was, I would simply say, stick to what your convictions are, believe in what you're doing.
Right.
And you're going to have a hard time not being successful.
Right. Well, and I'm going to say, and when you hit on that is, finding your why. So I've been in this industry a little over 13 years. Okay. I hated it whenever I would go to a seminar or, hire a coach or something. They'd say, well, let's figure out what your why is.
Yeah, I understand.
I went 11 years without a why.
Right.
I'm like, I don't know why I do it. It's just at the time I needed a job. I had a guy, my financial advisor says, hey, why don't you do this? And I was like, yeah, all right, and I said, I got into it because I like the looks of all the money. And, but as I soon realized it wasn't about the money, it's about the people. And, but I really didn't know my why until about 2-3 years ago. I really figured out what my why was. Doesn't mean I wasn't good at what I was doing. But I controlled my habits. Those 10, 11 years, I controlled my habits to be good habits.
What is your why?
To make a difference in people's lives. And that, I talk about being a pastor, and I do more ministry today as a financial planner than I ever did as preaching in a pulpit. Because the number one challenge people have in their marriages and most relationships has to deal with money.
Right.
And goes back to what we talked about before. When people are more vulnerable with me talking about money and their life and how to live their best life than they ever were in a counseling session with me as a pastor.
It's interesting.
And so I know more about them. I know more about how they want to be. And that now I'm able to do that. And And again, I'm not a Bible banging person
Right.
in your face. I gently nudge them to, to being better. And anyway, and it leads into different conversations. And I've learned to value those relationships much more.
Mhm.
That I finally I would rather have 100 quality relationships than 600 accounts.
Right.
And that's been my philosophy now for the last few years. I'm going, no, 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 no. I'm not going to take somebody just to take somebody. Kind of drives my wife nuts every once in a while because she's like, well, they have like $2 million. Not
Got
my
to say
client.
no.
Not
Yep.
my client. They're not my
Right.
client.
Right.
And when you talk about making the plan, I had a referral from one of my best clients, and he came in, and I went through the whole thing, and he had a $2 million, and I opened the account, and we were set to do everything. The money never showed, and he's like, oh, yeah, I'll get it next week. I'll get it next week. We're all good. I'll transfer it next week. Well, next week never happened.
Right.
And finally, I just had to send him a note and say, you know what, I appreciate it. Obviously, you've changed your mind. It's okay to tell me no. Um, and just and I said, but I'm going to close the account because nothing's happening with it and enough time's gone by. I'm just going to close the account, and I wish you well. And the guy who referred him to me, he's like, well, he hasn't come over, what if he does and all this stuff. And if I had to tell him, I said, you know what, I love you. You're one of my favorite clients, but he's not my client.
Right. You are.
You are.
Right.
And if I said it, I doubt I would ever take him back, because if you tell me you're going to do something multiple times and don't do it, then I don't want to work with you.
Right. Pretty clear.
Because
Pretty clear.
it's all about the actions. I don't care what you tell me. I
Yeah.
care about what you. Oh,
Well,
I'm going to start contributing more to my IRA, but never do.
Well, the guy made it pretty clear that your relationship's being built on deception right out of the bat, because
Exactly.
so down the road, the first time the market goes down 30%, you're going to have a
Right.
very upset client. Hey, let's
Yeah.
do this as we're wrapping up the show here.
Sure.
This has been awesome. In your experience, what would be some words of wisdom, some nuggets of knowledge that you can partake to my followers and my watchers and listeners to help them with the mental health epidemic we have today? What are some things that come to mind as people watch this, that doesn't matter where they work, doesn't matter their marital state, doesn't matter what their occupation is, doesn't even really matter a lot. It just matters how this is doing up here.
Right.
How do we get people to improve their personal well-being and the lives of those people around them?
Good question. Good question. There's something I've told my kids while they were growing up. We all go to the school of life. Some of us pay more tuition than others, and I paid some doozies. And you can look at any situation that way. That, all right, this is just tuition. Move on.
Right.
I'm going to learn from this. Move on. Or you can wallow in it. And I've found, for me personally, I can wallow in it for an hour or 3 days, but I'll be right back to where I was in the beginning.
Yeah.
So I'm a take charge kind of a person, and I just go, okay, well, what's the solution? And it goes back to what we talked about before. You have to take care of you, and you got to get your internal voice in line. And if you don't change your internal voice, nothing's going to change. Because if you're constantly telling yourself you're a failure, you can't, I'm an addict, whatever. If that's what you're constantly telling yourself, and if that negative voice is all you're listening to, all you're going to get is the negative. And for me, I had to just change that voice of saying, when that negative came in, no, that's who I was. That's not who I'm trying to be. And that's not where I'm going. Just telling myself that changed everything. And and I'll tell your people out there, there was a moment in my life that making the bed in the morning was a huge accomplishment for me.
Yeah.
That was, and so I get it, I get it. I've been there, and I could easily slip back there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like
you never conquer this.
No, like
Right.
you had your box a short time ago, you had that box.
Yeah.
You knew if you opened it, what was going to happen,
Right.
but you opened it anyway.
Right.
And what happened.
Right.
And the same thing with me. I mean, we all have that box.
Absolutely.
And if you're not ready to open it, be prepared. Prepare yourself, because you have to be prepared to, when this, I do this with my clients. We do this with my clients, and you can do it with anything in life of, okay, the market takes a downturn. What are we going to do?
Right.
So that when the market does take the downturn, they're not calling and panicking, because we know what we're going to do. We've already discussed it. You have to do that. Okay, the next time this emotion comes up, the next time the rage comes up within me, the next time the depression comes up in me, what am I going to do to handle it? And if you don't think about it ahead of time, then you're just going to react to it, and it's easy to get sucked into that vortex.
Perfectly said. Perfectly said. Because I've been saying too, Eric, in line with that, and I got a couple notes I wrote down here I wanted to hit before we ended, but I like to say prevention and preparedness, because the prevention part would be eating healthy, exercising, non-toxic relationships, don't drinking, don't smoke. That's right. You're involving yourself in. And then there's the preparation. That's the mental. I know something bad's going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen. Right. Somebody close to me is going to die, or I'm going to die first. Nobody's figured out a way to live forever. Right. I have a great friend of mine, Ben Rogers, who was a guest on my show a couple shows ago. Very active community stalwart here in Cedar Rapids. He's got a tattoo on his arm, and I just learned this. I had to write it down because I'm trying to remember it. It's Non Sum Qualis Aram, and it's by the poet, Latin poet Horace. And what it means is, I am not what I used to be. And he has that tattooed on his arm, and he talks about his sobriety and his alcoholism and all that. And it's about the evolution of our lives. It's like, I'm not that kid back in college. I'm not that individual that was married just 9 weeks ago. That person is not here anymore. I'm widowed at this point in my life. So why go back there and try to live in that world that doesn't exist? And if I do, find the positive things about my marriage and the positive things about my son, Seth. Right. So that was one thing I want to throw out there. And then the last thing I wanted to say, and you talked about this about a couple minutes ago, and it's a word that keeps coming into my mind. I absolutely love this word. I'll tell you a quick story about how this word kind of works into day-to-day conversations with kids. So I'm talking to my son Roman the other night. He's having a tough day. He's 18 and lost his older brother and lost his mom. I still have all my brothers, and I still have my parents, and I'm 55. I can't relate to that. Right. And I always say a quote to the boys. I always say, I was once your age, you were never mine. Yep. And that's when I talk to him, I've been 18, you've never been 55. And Roman turned that on me. Right. He said, yeah, Dad, you were 18, but you never lost a brother and a mom. Right. And I went, wow, that's awesome, dude. I gave him a big hug. We started crying together, and he was having a really bad time. And I said, Roman, think of the greatest moment that you had in the last couple of months. Right. Greatest moment. And my youngest son is gay. He came out as gay, and we embraced it. And I love the journey he's on. And he said, I hear a phone ringing. Yeah, hold on. Oh, you're good. What? Nope, that's good. But the point I'm going with this, so my youngest son's gay. He came out as gay, and it's been an incredible learning experience for me. But he said the best moment I've had the last 60 days was the time I spent with my boyfriend. And I said, he lives in Denver, Colorado. I said, Roman, but you knew at some point that moment was going to end, right? The idea of impermanence. Right. And I said, this moment you have right now, the way you're feeling about your mom and your brother, that so too will end.
Right.
That
Yep.
lifespan is impermanent as well. So the good moments and the bad moments, they
Right.
don't last. And
Right.
so when you're in the lowest of times, you're considering
Right.
suicide, you want to have that drink, and you open that box like I did a few weeks ago. I knew that moment was going to end.
Yep.
As did the best moments of my life.
Mhm.
That is, I think, the non sum qualis seram Latin phrase that I may have as a tattoo somewhere in my arm now too. I am not what I used to be. That is such an awesome, awesome phrase about living life, evolving through life as
Right.
that's what we do. That's what we
Right.
do. And that's not a, I'm not saying I'm a proponent of evolution versus creationism.
Right.
That's not what I'm talking about. We do evolve, and we evolve
Right.
daily. We
Right.
evolve daily.
Well, we all have experiences.
Perfect. Yeah.
Every experience changes us, you know, and whether it be big or small, you know, and for me, going along those lines of what I've had to do, and I've had this conversation with my daughter many times because she's a little stubborn, and but I said the thing is where's your focus?
Right.
Where's your focus?
Right.
And I find that when I'm in my lowest times, my focus is all on me and on it's me. I'm sad. I'm bummed. I'm.
Yep.
And but to change that around, my focus has to go outward to others.
Well said.
So she was, and I told her this many times, she was a micro preemie. She was 1.5 pounds when she was born. Little tiny things. She's 22 now, great, healthy. And I said, that stubbornness is what kept you alive when you were little. I said, but as you evolved and as you grew, let me tell you what. I said, stubbornness is all inward focus. It's about you. I don't want to.
Right. Right.
Okay. That's the focus of stubbornness. I don't. I said, but now turn that outward and focus it on an outward thing. I said, now it's determination and it makes you unstoppable.
Perfect.
It's the same emotion.
Absolutely.
But where's your focus? And I guess, you know, if anybody's listening, I don't know if it makes a difference, but really, what words are you using in your head?
Yeah.
Is it
that's so true.
I, me?
So
if that's
true.
the case, change the recording and change your focus. And once you do, life gets better. If you start focusing on other people, your issues become so much smaller. And you know, that's just the big key. Make a difference. And you don't have to make a big difference. I mean, it's as simple as going back into a store and somebody has a shopping here. Let me take that for you and take the shopping cart away. You know, it's those little things that make a difference.
Yeah.
You know, especially like, you know, I've shared this story with you before. There by the grace of God, there go I. I've been there. I've been broke, been on food stamps, you know, been homeless. I've been all of that. And that when I see somebody in a grocery store, you know, I see a young mom with 3 kids acting up, trying to take care of things and pulls out her EBT card. I'll just say, hey, I got this. It's okay.
Right.
I got this. And, you know, that's the kind of kindness that I'm thankful I can do that now. There was a point in my life, I was that person. I couldn't do it.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, and that I can. And I say it many times in my church. The mission field is right here. It's not in Costa Rica. It's right here. There are enough people here that you can make an impact on.
Oh, we need it.
And it doesn't. And again, it's just a smile. It's just, you know, it's not a lot. People think it's a lot, but when you're in the midst of it, think about it. If you're hurting right now, if somebody just said hello with a smile, or I hope you have a great day, anything like that,
I've said
it makes a difference.
I told my boys, you know, 5 times a day, you know, if I say 10, 20, people can't count to me. 5 times a day, do something to put a smile on somebody's face. Mm-hmm. And it could be the littlest thing. You're walking out of the grocery store, the kid that's in high school bagging your groceries. Hey, look at his name tag. Hey, Sam, thanks a lot, man. Have a great day.
Yeah.
You know, just a little. Well, how long did that frickin' take? instead of just taking your bag
and
act like you're some, country clubber or something, and just walk out of there like that kid owed me. That kid needs to bag my bag. And maybe he put my fruit with the meat and I'm pissed off. It's like, I don't know. We could go on for hours, man.
But Dale Carnegie says it best when you say that. Dale Carnegie said it best. What's the sweetest word in the language that people like to hear? Their own name.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's not a big thing. It's just those little things that those are what make the difference. And it's not about you. And when you talk about what's my why, it's not about me anymore. It's about others.
If you're a jerk, you're suffering, you're angry, it's your choice.
Mm-hmm.
These are all choices you have. And so I think to wrap this up, this has been it's an hour and 9 minutes. So I appreciate it. I think our pre-interview went about as long as well. Real quickly, where can people reach you if they want to comment or follow you on social media? I mean, what's the best place to reach Eric Boyum?
Absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn and on YouTube. So LinkedIn, it's Fortify Financial Services, same on YouTube. My website is fortifyfinancialservices.com. You can reach me at any of those. Drop me an email, whatever. And, I say it, go live your best life, whatever that may be, live your best life. And, you say undeterred. It's all the same.
I say live undeterred. Yep.
It's all the same. And I say it to everybody. It's not a flippant phrase that I say. I genuinely mean it. From when I say live your best life, it comes from my heart, because I lived 50 years of my life miserable.
Right.
Absolutely miserable. And I can think of all the time that was wasted.
Yeah.
And the little things that just didn't matter. And it was a self-inflicted wound. And just do whatever you have to do. It's up to you. It's not somebody else. It's not some special program.
Well, you and I both we don't, in the context of time, we don't have a lot left. And it's extremely important for us to make the best of it. So listen, I love you.
There's more road behind us than there is in front of us.
Yeah, just watch out for the demon van from hell that comes flying down the highway. Make sure you hide in the bushes and get out of the way and let that thing get out of your head. Listen, brother, I love you like a brother.
All right.
Appreciate the show. And for those people that are interested, you can subscribe on my YouTube channel. The livingundeterred.com website has everything. You can purchase the book. It talks about the Living Undeterred U.S. tour next May. We take off for 92 days around the country. My goal is to raise $1 million for mental health, substance abuse, and addiction. So I'm hoping to meet Eric when I come up to Idaho. So with that, have a great rest of your week. And as I always say, live undeterred.